Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Shaar. Sorry, bit of a organizing technical work, so sorry for the delay. Okay, so last week we spoke about the concept of, although we don't understand why there is a situation that a person who is not following the rules of Hashem, and we could even consider a Rasha sometimes, will be having an easy time with his parnasa, and at the same time, we also have a situation that a tzaddik who's doing everything right is having a very hard time in the parnasa. So, although um, he writes, the Shaar Habitachon, the Rabbi writes very clearly that he's not going to explain it, and the reason he's not going to explain it is because obviously we don't know the bigger picture. We don't know how Hashem runs the world. We don't know what happened before, what's going to happen after. However, afterwards, he says that he will, after we understand we don't know the full picture, he will explain a bit more about why and what could be the reason and why it could make sense. So last week we went through a whole list of things that would be a reason that a tzaddik wouldn't have an easy life financially. Now we said we're going to go through the reasons and the times that a person could have a very easy time financially, who would be a Rasha, somebody who does not follow the rules of Hashem, but still it seems to be that things are working out very well for him. Okay, so he says like this: the good that Hashem gives the Rasha is which we've said, this is the simple pshat, which we've said many times. It could be just simply because Hashem is giving him his schar here. And Hashem wants him to have an easy life and a good life, because the reality is that everybody has something good. Everybody does mitzvahs. Everybody does something right. We know, we've spoken many times in the Shaar, and we know clearly, Chazal tell us that Hashem wanted to give us lots of mitzvahs, he wants lots of merits, and that's why he was marbe Torah mitzvahs. He gave us 613, which is a lot of mitzvahs. And as I mentioned, a famous question everybody asked. I've been asked this by non-religious people or religious people actually also as well. In when I've been speaking in public, I've been asked very clearly about, if Hashem really wanted me to have these merits, he would have given me 5 mitzvahs, I would have kept them properly. 10 mitzvahs, 20 mitzvahs, but 613 is too much. And the answer is simple, that Hashem actually wants us to have so many mitzvahs, and therefore all the simple things that we do anyways, he turned into mitzvahs. You anyways eat, so he gave you a bracha. You anyways will be nice to your parents, or should be nice to your parents at least, then he made it into a mitzvah. You anyways, if your friend is stuck and he needs help, you'll lend him money, so he made it into a mitzvah. He also made it into a mitzvah that when your friend returns the money, he will get a merit of a mitzvah. All these day-to-day stuff in life, Hashem turned into a mitzvah. So to say that any Jew goes through life without doing mitzvahs is impossible, even if he's not shomer Torah mitzvahs. Impossible that he's not. We know that Chazal tell us that even people that don't have any mitzvahs are filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate, like a rimoin. Maybe during lockdown, some people had time to count how many parts we have in the rimoin, but anyways, it's a lot of mitzvahs. So even the people that are not in the level of tzaddikim or shoim, rikonim, are still full of mitzvahs. So he says simply that sometimes a person who does good things, however, the general picture is unfortunately not good, and Hashem gives them the opportunity to merit and to achieve and to get the schar for his merits in this world, unfortunately, instead of in the next world. And that could be a reason why somebody would have a very comfortable life. I'll just mention again what we said last week, that a person shouldn't worry. The Gemara says in Brachos that if somebody has a life with no yisurim whatsoever, nothing inconvenient, then he should worry. Maybe he's getting all his schar in this world. So many times people say, "Oh, 1 second, my life is quite good. So Baruch Hashem, our lives are good." However, what the Chazal referring to Yisumim, they say if you put your hand in your pocket to get a certain coin and you get a different coin instead, that's the Yisumim talking about. So if by any chance you've tried to buy something and the wrong coin came out, or anything that's more extreme than that, then don't worry, you are going through Yisurim. By the way, which shows us how amazing Yisurim are. Even something that's really not extreme, really not a big deal, really not, so you got the wrong coin. Sometimes we don't even have a coin in the pocket when we need it. So the fact that we got the wrong coin is actually, we can think of worse things. And still, Chazal tell us that is already considered something that a person is going through some kind of Yisurim in this world. So that's one thing. The second thing, sometimes it could be that a person gets it b'derech pikodon. Hashem gives it to him as a pikodon, something he needs to save. Like he needs to guard it, the money. What does it mean? Could happen a situation that a person, although didn't keep certain mitzvahs properly, wasn't tzaddik, didn't do the right thing, but for whatever reason, he was merited to have a child who's a tzaddik. And this child, Hashem wants to shower him with blessings, with wealth, but all he's doing is sitting and learning Torah. He's not doing anything else. Where's he going to get that money from? So Hashem says, okay, this person, although he doesn't deserve for himself this money, however, in order to give this blessing to the tzaddik who does, I'll give him all this money so he could give it to his son, or he could look after his child's needs. So we see actually sometimes somebody could be merited with lots of money and lots of parnasa, but it's not for him. It's for someone else. We know that there were times that certain communities, even if we look at South Africa, that there were certain places that one could question how come people were so wealthy here if we look a few years back. But then we know at the same time that the fact that a lot of South Africans came from Lithuania, the Ponovicharov came from Lithuania and felt very comfortable and very connected to the Jews here. The whole of Ponovich was built from South Africa. So well could be that there was somebody who was, one second, it well could be that there was somebody who merited the schus to be, merited the schus of giving money for Torah. He merited the schus of having it. However, for himself, he wasn't supposed to get all that money. He wasn't supposed to have all that wealth, but he was just the vessel to bring it. By the way, this person will get schar for it, just to be clear, that if this person who doesn't merit to have this finances, but Hashem gives it to him because he will be giving it to somebody else, he will be giving it to tzedakah, he will be giving it to building Torah, to his son, to his family, or whatever it is, he still will get merit for the tzedakah he's doing, for the right thing he's doing. So sometimes people think that by taking money that they earned and giving it to tzedakah, they're losing money. When the reality is that it could be that they're actually gaining money, because in a situation that somebody is, there's loads of distractions here today, but we'll make a plan. In the situation that somebody is in a place that he's making money, that, sorry, I lost my thread of thought. 1 second. Okay, thank you. So in a case that somebody can have money that he's not merited for, but he's doing it, he deserves it, and he gets it for someone else, he still will get schar for passing it on, but he will be benefit. Oh, sorry, now I remembered. Okay, sometimes we have these evenings that we don't really remember, but the concept is like this. When a person is, as we said, if a person thinks sometimes that by giving tzedakah he's losing money, actually, if he's chosen to be the person that gets all the money so he can give it to tzedakah, by stopping, he'll lose. So we always have to keep the balance, and obviously a person has to keep the balance of what he can, when he can't. the percentages Chazal say to give, and not more and not less. But we have to be careful not to feel that the first thing we get rid of is maybe the first thing that is actually saving us, the first thing that is giving us the finances we need. So we need to find that boundary. Okay. The third thing could be not so pleasant. Sometimes a person gets damaged by his own money. Sometimes money could come to somebody as a punishment. I know as a teenager, you could never think of it. They always say, well, no, I'd rather sit and cry in my BMW or my Jag or whatever it is. But sometimes the stress of the finances or the risk or the danger or all these things that people need to deal with can actually be the reason that somebody suffers if he has that stress or danger or risk. So a person needs to realize sometimes actually the parnasa is not in his benefit. It puts him in a more difficult position. I mean, even here you could see, I've had times that I've driven in places and been stopped by the police. And as the policeman comes and approaches me in the car, right behind me comes a fancy, expensive new car. Within a split second, the police knows we're had a deal in this country, and he says, okay, go, all fine. And he stops the other guy. So you see that this guy, his luxury is costing him. No question about it, it's costing him. So sometimes a person can get, but it's for his discomfort. The next thing, sometimes there could be another option that actually Hashem gives somebody the Shaar, and he gives somebody the shefa, he gives somebody the merit of the money, because he trusts him that maybe it will be a reason for him to actually get closer to Hashem. One day he'll realize, one day he'll connect, one day by having the money he'll be closer to people that he can donate to, or he'll be closer to he'll be calmer, he'll be able to learn, and Hashem will actually give it to him, and that would be a reason for him to eventually get closer, or at least Hashem gives him that opportunity for when he does get back and get closer. The next example he brings is that sometimes, and this is a very big thing for us, we need to know, sometimes a person is actually not entitled according to his level, or according to his behavior. He should not something's getting stuck. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Got a message. It looked like something got stuck. Sorry about that. So it could be that a person does get merits and schar and a nice, comfortable life of parnasa just because he's meriting it from his parents. Which means if his grandfather or great-grandfather or somewhere along the lines was a tzaddik, then he could then and deserved it, so he could be meriting from him. It says people that do chesed with guf, their kids will have financial easier times. There are many things that Chazal say that people can get the blessings that they need. So, so if a person has all these things that it could get from a different place, and it's an amazing thing. By the way, I heard just this Shabbos, somebody told me that he heard from Rabbi Moshe Sternbuch that when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he went to the Briskerov's house, and Rabbi Moshe Sternbuch, who's the Rav here, he was a great grandson of the Vilna Gaon. And he goes to the Briskerov for the first time, and he says, Shalom, my name is Moshe Sternbuch, and Briskerov says, hi, welcome, nice to meet you. And he says, I'm a great grandson of the Gaon, Vilna Gaon. And it seemed like the Briskerov wasn't too impressed. Okay. So he said, no, Rabbi, my name is Sternbuch, and I'm the great grandson of the Vilna Gaon. And Briskerov was, okay. So he says, Rebbe, when the Vilna Gaon used to daven every day and used to say, "V'niya anachnu v'tzetzoinu v'tzetzoi tzetzoinu v'tzetzoi," he meant me. So just so you should know who I am, I'm the person that the Vilna Gaon used to daven for. And he says that then he got a very good reaction. So he says, okay, now maybe the Briskov said now he can appreciate. It's not only that you're a grandson, you realize that when the Vilna Gaon davened about his grandchildren, he davened about him. So many times could be that a person will merit and have a wonderful life and wonderful blessing in the merit of his parents, because they did the right thing, because they davened for their kids, because they did something, even if he doesn't deserve. Which, by the way, an amazing enlightening thought, which I actually heard from my wife, about the whole concept. If we look at the way Hashem created nature, Hashem could have created us just like worms and just like a different creature. Why do we have to have parents? Why does it have to be that we come from parents? Why does Hashem could create that one day you'll have a garden and people will come out, or whatever it is will be created? Hashem created the world dafka in a way that there's parents and kids. Why? And there's many reasons why. Where's the parents' role? And it was an interesting thought that really, physically, we don't need parents per se, because just like Hashem gives us money to support our kids, he could give it to our kids. Hashem could create the world in a way that our kids can get their support without us. In reality, it's our job, it's our responsibility, and we're there for them, but it could have been different. But the one thing that is special about parents is that, and this is an amazing concept, is that we can daven for our kids. So sometimes Hashem creates a child and or somebody, and he needs a spiritual push. He needs a daven. He needs a merit. He needs something. And why would somebody daven for him and donate this spiritual journey if it wasn't for his parents, for his mother? Okay, who said that Rachel Imenu chose to be a mother even after she passed away. She'll always be there for the tefillas. So a Jewish mother, a father, I know we always say the Jewish mom should daven, but because it's a men's share, I'll tell you a secret, we're also allowed to daven for our kids. Just don't tell anybody. But the concept is that we are allowed, that we are as parents able to give that push. And sometimes financially, just as a side point, we could also help them if it's in our schus for our kids or our grandparents for us or whatever it is. Just as a side thing, the day before I got married, I met in Eretz Yisrael a tremendous magid, a Mordechai Druk, Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh Livracha, and he at the time, every one of his kids was a Rav, a Rosh Hashiva, Magid Misharim, big Talmid Chachamim. So I had a connection with him, and I told him, Rav, I'm getting married tomorrow. He actually came to my wedding, and I said, I also want that my kids will be like yours. What do I do? What do I do to get kids like you did? And he tells me, oh, that's very simple. I said, okay, I'm listening. He says, no, it's very simple. He says, people sometimes think that I'm crazy. Why? Because I walk in the street and I talk to myself. He says, but really, I don't walk in the streets and talk to myself. He says, every second in my life I have that I'm not busy with something, learning or doing or something, I'm saying Tehillim for my kids. So if I'm walking down the street, I'm just walking in the street saying Tehillim to myself, so my kids will be Talmidei Chachamim. He says, do that, believe me, it's easy, he says. If you just daven 24/7 for your kids. And by the way, just to get the concept, he was still doing it, and his kids were way in their 40s and 50s, but he was still doing it, which means that it's never something to stop. However, so it could be that a person is merited something that he not necessarily deserves, or he doesn't necessarily deserve, because of the schus, because of the merits of his parents. And we see, and by the way, he said we say that in benching every day. Hopefully every day, but when we bench, but we say that in benching all the time, which again, I don't know how we're getting sidetracked, but I heard from somebody who heard from the Ger Rebbe, and take this with a pinch of salt, because I'm not recommending to go do it at home right now. But one of the Ger Hasidim came to the Rebbe once and complained about Parnasa. And he said, something's just not working. My business was going very well. Things were amazing, but something's wrong. And he said, and he tells him, Maybe you did this. And the Rebbe's kind of going through his life with him, trying to figure out what went wrong. And eventually, the Rebbe asked him, has he done anything different? He said, no. Any changes in life? No. Your wife, did your wife do any changes in her life? And he kind of thought, he said, no. Eventually, he smiled and he said, well, she started a diet. And the Rebbe tells him, oi, does that mean she doesn't bench anymore every day if she's not eating bread every day? So he said, no, she's actually eating bread only on Shabbos. She doesn't bench during the week anymore. She's on a diet. So the Rebbe says, that's a problem. Because for you, you were merited, you were getting shefa, you were getting parnasa from your wife's benching every day. She benched properly. And Hashem would send you more finances, more shefa. And now you need to find that connection to Hashem someplace else. Now I'm saying, take it carefully. It doesn't mean that we need to come and definitely not blame our wives if we're having a challenging time. I don't know, maybe you're not benching well enough. But even more than that, if anybody is interested in the diet, it's not our place to stop them. However, just as a point of concept of understanding where blessings could come. But going back to what we did say that we do in benching, we say every time, Na roisi v'gam zokanti, v'lo roisi tzadik nezov. He says, I'm young and older, never seen a tzaddik being neglected. But the next words are v'zaroi mevakesh lochem, which means that his kids are also blessed with what they need. So the tzaddik and his kids are covered. So sometimes somebody who could be not a tzaddik, but he could be a son of a tzaddik, then he will be, and now it doesn't have to be just a son, it could be a grandson, a great-grandchild, etc. It could be someone that has the merit of his parents, and he has the ability to get this the stuff from the schus of his parents. Okay. However, that's one thing. And the next thing, the last example that he brings, and he says like this: sometimes a person can get schar in order to be a challenge for somebody else completely, which means, and this is an amazing thing, we've seen it previously in the shiurim, that sometimes Hashem would give loads of blessing to our neighbors just to show us that he can do it. And the reason we don't have it is because Hashem decided it's not the right thing for us, because it's not a big deal. And sometimes, says the Chovos Halevavos, who can give people that don't deserve this wealth, he will give them that wealth, and that will be a nisayon for us. A nisayon for us to say, wow, look at those people, they don't go in derech Hashem, and they have such an easy, beautiful, amazing life. Which, by the way, I have to say, the Chovos Halevavos brings it here, and we can't take it not as seriously. And I see it consistently. Sometimes young boys, that they go to yeshiva, they go to learn, and they get this feeling that, if I just go to work, or if I just not be such a yeshiva bacher, then I'll have a fancy car, and I'll have rich life, and I'll have everything perfect, and my life is going to be amazing. And sometimes maybe Hashem does give these people extra good cars, extra nice appliances, nice houses, because it's a nisayon for us. It's a nisayon for us to realize that we need to do what Hashem tells us. We need to do the right thing. And regardless, and not say, well, you see, it doesn't help to be a tzaddik because that Rasha is getting all that finances. No, he's getting all that finances for you. So you can actually see it and say, you know what, I'm still doing the right thing. Just this Shabbos, I had a discussion with somebody, and he was complaining. He says, Hashem puts me through unbelievable nisyonos, and I can't even manage it. I can't cope with it. And he tells me, sometimes I get in milsh mones, or I get tremendous pain, and it hurts, and it's hard. And I don't know what Hashem's doing, that I can't manage. And I told him, but do you manage? He says, yeah. So I said, you see, Hashem doesn't put you more than you can manage. He says, my Yisurim are definitely the kind that can't manage. But I manage because I have no choice. So I told him, so they're definitely the kind you can manage, because you have no choice, but you can manage. And it's working, and you will get merited for it. So Sometimes you feel like, why is it happening? He says, no, I doubt. Every time I do another chizuk, it gets harder. Yes, because you can deal with more. You can deal with more. You're put to more of a challenge. That's sometimes something we don't understand. Somebody decides to grow spiritually. So every time he gets to a higher level, he can deal with more challenges. When somebody in a lower level can't deal with so much challenges. So we look at it as, you see this person who's not on such a high level and he has all he needs and he has a good life. Yes, because he can't deal with the challenges. So he has an easier life. He's just lower on the range. He won't get as big reward. He won't get as a connection to Hashem. He won't get as such a spiritual level. Right? It's like you see if you ever look in the army, you'll see that the higher and more stronger and more powerful you are in the army, you have to practice and you have to go through harder work. So you'll see that. So you'll see somebody. How could it be? He's such a high level in the army, and he's such a special unit, and they make him jump over fences and dive and jump from helicopters and go in the water and out the water and hot and cold. And this guy, he hardly comes to the army for 4 or 5 hours a day, and he doesn't have to work so hard, and he doesn't train so much. Everybody's going to laugh because obviously he's not in the level of that training, so he has everything easier because he's not part of the army to that level. But if somebody is part of the army to that level, their training is much harder. Their challenges are much stronger. Then they're much more connected. They have a much stronger part in that in that journey of getting close to Hashem. So the same thing, a person who is who's ne'eman to Hashem, right? If somebody is ne'eman to Hashem, if somebody's connected to Hashem strongly, then he is able to see, he will get schar from Hashem for the fact that he actually accepts this concept of doing what Hashem asks him to and what is expected to. What is expected to, sorry. Okay, so we just finished and we went through this concept of the different levels and different reasons, let's put it this way, different reasons that we see that a person can be a tzaddik and go through a stronger challenge, and he can be a rasha and have an easier life and an easier way of accepting. Now, we're going to have to see, now we're going to go into a new topic. And obviously we're not going to focus too much in it today. It's going to be a bit of a journey through this, but let's just start touching on it. Okay. There is, when we come to hishtadlus, right? What the Chovos Halevavos calls the Gilgul HaSibois. The Gilgul HaSibois is the things that a person needs to do in order to earn parnasa. We know that Hashem created the world in a way that if you work, you get paid and you have money. If you eat bread, you're not hungry. So a person has to do that hishtadlus. Now, we think that, a person has to shake lulav, a person has to build a sukkah, and a person has to have matzah on Pesach, and he needs to do hishtadlus, which is true. However, there's a very big gap in differences between what is the hishtadlus, what is something that somebody is obligated to do. Why? We know that there are many different kinds of jobs out there, and some person, his hishtadlus is to work physically hard. Some person, his hishtadlus is to do emotionally hard. Some person, his hishtadlus is to go overseas or to a different city and to sleep out of his house overnight. Some people have it easier, some people have it harder. So what is the hishtadlus that a person needs to do? Right? The examples he brings that, if we look, some people can businessmen, some people can do sewing or can work in the field and grow stuff and be an oris. I'm not going to go into the examples. He says, so first of all, a person needs to understand that there's no chiyuv and there's no interest even to do every one of them. A person may think, it's my hishtadlus to get a parnasa. It's my hishtadlus. Sorry, it's my hishtadlus to work and to achieve. So, therefore, what I'm going to do is like this. I'm going to do in the morning sewing, in the afternoon selling, and in the evening I'll be a caterer, and at night I'll try to do I don't know, property, and then weekends I'll go overseas and I'll do this and that. And sometimes we get drowned in many different jobs. So the first thing he says is that there isn't any Indian to do every one of these hishtadlus. Person shouldn't think, well, I need to try this, and if it doesn't work, I'll try this, and I'll try this, and I'll try this. Now, the obligation of a person is to work, to get a job, to get parnasa, on a level that makes sense, that he could manage financially. There's no interest to try all of them, which actually may not even work. And sometimes it's harder when the person is involved in too many things. I remember once I drove an older guy. He was my close friend of mine. He was Rosh Yeshiva. I was a Magachir in his yeshiva. He was head of a Chesed organization. He was involved in Kiruv, very big. And he made a big event once. And he asked me if I'm coming anyways, if I'd take his father. I said, of course. It was a big schus for me. So I took his father in the car and we're going to the event. So the real old European man. And I tell him, no, you must be very proud. Amazing, your son's running all these things at the same time. He was old school, as we say. And he says, tell my son that in nature, there's one animal that can also fly and also swim and also walk. So that's the duck. But you got to realize that it doesn't really swim. It kind of floats. And it doesn't really fly. Have you seen ducks, how they fly? And walking, I'm not even going to go down that route. He says, tell my son to focus on one thing, be the best in the world. I'm just going to say that a few years later, I did meet him and his son was extremely successful and powerful. And he told me, no, you know what, maybe he could do a few things. He's better than a duck. But the concept is, there's no chiyuv ishtadlus. A person is not obligated to, and it's not even beneficial to be all over the place with too many ishtadlus, with too many parnasas, with too many things. A person's got to focus and has got to do his parnasa. So once he's chosen his parnasa, then that's what he needs to stick to. There's no mitzvah to do other things. And he says the person needs to think. He says some jobs you need a lot of physical work, but you don't have a lot of thinking to do. So if a person knows that he's very strong physically and it's good for him physically to be in good shape and to move around, that's a job he should take. And that's what he needs to focus on. And that's where his parnasa is going to come, because that's the talent Hashem gave him. And that will be the way for him to achieve. If a person is physically weaker, but at the same time, he likes to think, he likes numbers, he can be an accountant, he can be whatever it is, then that's what he needs to do. But if he's going to start schlepping benches and things, he's not going to succeed. And there's no interest for him to do that. And in that area comes, the Chovos says something very interesting. He said, the concept of getting a job, doing ishtadlus, every person is obligated to. But the concept of what to do, he says we need to listen to our natural thoughts. He says just like when Hashem gives parnasa to the animals, he gives parnasa to a cat. The cat knows to go catch mice. She didn't have to go, no cat goes for 12 years of school and then matric and then a degree, a BA in catching mice and a master's in catching mice, because the cat knows what it needs to do. The cat doesn't say, oh, maybe I'll try plastic today. They know. And the fish know what they need and the birds know what they need. There's natural. He says, by us, Hashem gave us the strength and the power to understand what should be our parnasa. what do we feel comfortable with? What do we feel is our direction? What do we feel we can do well? And he says, and what are the things that we have the stuff for? So if a bird needs to eat certain kinds of food that's between the stones, Hashem gives it a very long beak. If a lion needs to attack animals, so he has very strong claws. So a person needs to stop a moment, look at himself and say, okay, what am I good at? Physically, mentally, emotionally, what am I good at? Once a person feels and he sees what he's good at, that's where his time to come in and say, okay, so this is what Hashem wants from me. Trust your common sense. This is my ishtadlus, and this is what I'm doing. I'm not going to try 50 different things and other ideas and different changes, and because that's not necessarily where Hashem sent me to. And what's the path that Hashem gives us, which we see in an amazing thing, by the way. I went to a study that they say, what are the jobs that people earn the most money? But they go, and they say the job people earn the most money is actually none. It's if you do something you're very good at, you'll find a way to be the best in it, and you'll find a way to make it amazingly good financially, even if it's in a level of cleaning. I mean, you could see people have companies and they're coaching for how to wash dishes or whatever it is. And they're making huge money by being professionals in it and explaining about it and showing and teaching and consulting to companies about dishes and about soap from nothing. If Hashem gives somebody a strength, a certain area that he's good at, if he sticks to it and he does the best he can in that area, that's where he's going to achieve. And that's where he's going to grow, and that's what he's going to have, and that's what's going to work. So there's no obligation whatsoever to try many different things. And here he comes and says even more than that. Think about it like this. If we understand clearly that there isn't a direct connection between how much money we make and how much we work. We make money because that's what Hashem decided we can earn, and we work because that's what Hashem told us we have to do. So then you can easily choose the job that's comfortable for you and you're good at and you're talented at, rather than suffering at work. Why? Because you have a chova of obligation of work, of ishtadlus. Do it. What you'll earn is a different connection, is a different, it's not directly connected to what you'll work. Hashem does it obviously in a very logical way, but as we spoke many times, it's not only about income. Having finances, having money, it's also about what we spend. So there's a balance of what comes in, what goes out, and Parnasa will have what we need and what we should be getting, and we just need to do our obligation. So we don't need to work harder in order to get more finances. If anything, we need to work harder on our spiritual level and work harder on our tzedakah, on our chesed, on whatever it is, on our relationship with Hashem, and what we spoke about, why a person can be financially calm. If we spoke last week, if he won't get distracted to the averas, if he won't get caught up, whatever it is. But to work harder won't necessarily bring us to what we need to do. And if it won't necessarily bring us to what we need to do, we're just wasting our time and wasting our energy. If we're wasting our time, wasting our energy, that already is not ishtadlus. That's already not what we are obligated to do. I think we're going to go into that a bit more next week, Be'ezer Hashem, into the concepts of how to choose the ishtadlus, how much to do, and where to go. But the concept is clear and simple at this point, that a person must realize that the obligation of ishtadlus is to use your talent, do it because that's what you're obligated to. And then the rest of the work is on a spiritual level, is on a connection level, and not necessarily, or definitely not actually, by taking an extra job or an extra mission or something that's not relevant, just in order to make some more money, which obviously, if you don't deserve it, you're not supposed to get it, you won't get it. Okay. And we're going to stop at this point.